Expecting Eric?
We'll have to send him a link. I think someone talked to him. But anyways, intros first. Welcome to A Nice Place to Brew. I'm Jason.
And I'm George.
Thank you so much for joining us. Today is, I always look at my watch every time because I never think, I should know the date before I do this. Today is August 13th. We do the webcast here on our Facebook and YouTube channel every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We've been doing this since the beginning of the quarantine. If you can't wait a whole week to hear George, myself, Paulie, and all the other assorted guests that we have on the webcast, then check out our YouTube channel for all of our past shows. Also, George and I do a podcast on. George and I do a podcast under the same name, A Nice Place to Brew. It's available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and all the places you get your podcast from. Our website is www.aniceplacetobrew.com, and our social media links are on A Nice Place to Brew and Nice Place to Brew. George, how are you this evening?
Doing all right. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Cracking my beer. This is a Hop Butcher, and it's one I don't believe I've had before. So I have a whole lot to talk about tonight as far as hazies with my brew day this past weekend since our last show.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm ready to dive in. What are you drinking?
So I'm drinking Rally Cap, Richmond Rally Cap. And
nice artwork.
It is, isn't it? It's from Center of the Universe Brewing Company. And it's in Ashland, so it's a Virginia brewery. The tagline for them is it all revolves around the beer, as the beer is the center of the universe. But anyway, so Richmond Rally Cap is a grapefruit shandy, and I found it while I was out at the grocery store, and it is quite tasty.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Richmond, if I remember correctly, is home to a minor league team. Is that correct?
I believe it is.
Okay.
I know that they're Richmond Spiders.
Mm-hmm.
That's the University of Richmond.
That beer is affiliated with the team of some sort, isn't it?
It seems that way, doesn't it?
One would think.
Oh, that's right. Okay. The Richmond Flying Squirrels is the minor league team that is out of there. Yeah. So, looking at the logo.
Yeah.
It's a grapefruit eating a baseball.
Nice.
So, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, the Flying Squirrels, and then Fredericksburg is getting one as well, which I think is the Fredericksburg Nationals, if I remember correctly. So,
wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Go Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Growing. Good for them. That's a great town. Fredericksburg, Virginia. Right on the outskirts of Washington, D.C. Great, great town.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed. What kind of beer is that? What style?
Grapefruit shandy.
Grapefruit shandy. Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So, a little more about this double IPA.
Oh, yeah.
From our friends from Hop Butcher for the World. The hop combination of this beer is Citra, Mosaic, Simcoe, and Nelson Sauvignon.
Okay.
Yep. It's got the same base beer. Yeah, that one kind of stands out as like, that was an interesting choice.
Yeah, and it's Nelson Sauvignon or whatever it is. It's got kind of almost a fruity, wine-ish character to it, which
comes through.
Comes through, yeah. Yeah, I like that one.
It does. I have to admit, this is one of the better Hop Butchers I've had in quite a while. It's very smooth.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. Just was rearranging my mic a little bit.
All good.
Yeah.
So, can we talk about this past weekend's brew day?
I suppose, if you must.
All right. Okay. So we went through on the last episode, we went through the recipe. And this was going to be a first for me in a lot of ways. It's going to be my first Whirlpool. Let's see, what else? It will not
First
be returning
hazy.
to fermentation. First hazy, exactly. And first time, this is one of the unique things about the New England recipes is you don't have your standard bittering hop addition, which really threw me for a loop when I was designing the recipe, because I originally had put in an early addition, which I've never not done before in all my years of brewing. And fortunately, a nice place to brew's own, Polly, from the world famous Brew and Grow in Bolingbrook, Illinois, got a chance to look at an early version of the recipe, and he was quick to say, "Hey, Jason, your schedule is not right here." So he proceeded to give me a education of how those are meant to be organized. And so I got it corrected. And the hop schedule was like this. I had one aroma addition with 10 minutes left in the boil, and that was it. Every other hop addition, other than my dry hopping, which I'll get to in a minute, was all whirlpool additions. Mm-hmm. So I had a 20-minute whirlpool after the boil was done, and 4 ounces of hops went into the whirlpool with the hop spider right in the middle. Yeah, it was a lot. The advice you gave me as far as the 90-degree angle within one of the valves worked, I believe, to plan. I mean, I definitely had the circular motion. It wasn't strong enough to create like a full vortex, but I don't think that's really needed in order to do what the whirlpool is supposed to do, which is extract a lot of the oils from the hops.
Right. So what you're talking about is on your way back, you come out the kettle up from the bottom. On your way back in, with your whirlpool port, you have a 90-degree bend in there to start shunting that water around and create a whirlpool. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, good. So I guess I have a question. How big was that 90-degree? Was that like a 3/8 or a 1/2 inch?
It was what you had recommended.
Okay, so which would
have been a half inch.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So, well, actually, now that you say that, I'm wondering, because I think mine is 3/8, and I'm wondering if narrowing it down to that creates more of a whirlpool effect. I'd be curious to see how much of a whirlpool effect you got versus I get on a regular day.
I would have thought the opposite, honestly. The wider, you'd have more volume at least being pushed through it.
More volume, yes, but it's easier to create water pressure on a smaller diameter.
Okay.
Like like when you're, and if Polly were here, I'm sure you could corroborate this, but when you're talking about plumbing, if you have to do vertical movement in order to keep water pressure, you want to use, instead of like a 1/2 inch PVC, you want to use like a 3/8 inch PVC, and you'll have less of a pressure drop moving that way. So I'm wondering if but it's just idle speculation at this point.
That's an interesting point. If we had a plumber on this show who could explain such things. Yeah.
The one time we need a plumber.
Exactly. Paulie, unfortunately, will not be able to join us tonight. He had a prior commitment. So cheers to you, Paulie. Yeah. What else? Okay. Going past the whirlpool. This recipe calls for 2 different hop additions. And the advice given to me was do 1 dry hop addition at high krausen during primary. And that's what I've done. And the recommendation was, or at least what's in the recipe right now, is 5 days on the first dry hop. And I'm on day 3. Yeah, today's Thursday, so I'm on day 3 right now. The yeast I used was 1318, the London Ale yeast from Y Yeast, which is the go-to style for New England's. It's one of the most popular ones out there. And I also it had 36 hours on a starter, and I dry pitched a packet of US-05 with a thought that I don't think I had quite as much time on the starter as I probably needed. So this was a beer. It was too big a beer for me to under pitch, and that would have just ruined the batch. So I went with the extra US-05.
How big of a beer was it, percentage-wise?
So we made that's an interesting point. We made the decision mid-mash to make this a double.
Oh, well, hell. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So of course, the option was not there to add grains, of course. So you just bolster it with DME because that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So the original recipe, I think, called for a original gravity of like 1060 between 1060 and 1065. 1083.
That's what I thought I remembered.
Yeah.
You got up to 1083?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Yeah, if you wanted to do that all with the London with a single pack, you'd probably be looking at a 2-stage starter.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I needed almost 400 billion cells is what the calculator came out as. It was a little bit less, but in the neighborhood of that.
Yeah, you're either looking at a 2-stage starter or like a 5-liter flask to be able to do that. And a lot of DME. Yeah.
Or at least here's the other part. Always have the stir plate, which I think anybody out there who's building yeast starters does. It's an important part of it. But the second thing is make sure you have as much time as needed. The recommended time on a starter ranges between 12 and 72 hours. And that's a lot of range. So
there's a lot of range.
Yeah, it is. So how many cells you're going to get out of the starter is going to be proportional to how much time you get. So
yeah, I think especially with the stir plate though, there's a point of diminishing returns. Like I think what I usually give is between probably about 24 to 36, kind of like in there. Because I mean, at least the starter calculator that I use, I think I end up creating a 1035 beer. So it's really not that much, sugars in there. It's going to eat through it pretty quickly and generate, those clean cells and everything. But
that's a good point.
After a while, all those sugars are gone.
Right. So you're saying that if you keep the stir plate going after all the sugars have been consumed, are you then
doesn't do anything?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that would be an interesting experiment.
If only we had a biologist who could speak to this.
Well, I mean, at this point, I don't think we need a biologist, but you did raise something in my head that I think next time I do a starter, I'm going to take some readings periodically and see what the gravity of the starter is.
That's a good point. That'd be easy
and see
to do.
When it hits terminal gravity, basically.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I wouldn't be too. Just get some pipettes and a refractometer and chart it down. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Honestly, I might have a better way because Generation 3. I just got an email about this. I'm excited. I just remembered this because I have to order this. I hope I'm not too late. The Generation 3 of the Play-Doh airlock just came out, which is a redesign of their product and everything.
We looked at that.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if I can.
Can you grab that again? Can you grab that again real quick? That image. Yeah, this would be a good thing to talk about again. I think this is a fantastic piece out there if it really works as advertised.
Let's see. Get yours heavily discounted. It says. Come on, don't be too late. Oh, 72 hours. I think I'm okay. And I am pulling it up here as well.
Okay, right on.
Oh, good. I got the email a day ago. All right, good. So let me share my screen. Sorry, I had to know that if I needed to stop and order that real quick.
Is that what you did? Were you debating? It's like, I'm going to pull the trigger and buy it right now?
I was checking my email.
There we
Okay,
go.
so
Okay.
I'm sharing it,
Stream.
and,
Okay.
and actually they
Yeah,
have a
yeah, yeah.
countdown timer here. You can save $36 on it right now. But
Oh, okay.
so this is it. So I'm wondering if I should just get a larger stopper, and that'll fit on the Erlenmeyer flask, and put this guy on top, and it should be able to read the gravity as it goes. Because that's its whole point. Is you can track the gravity of your brew.
Are you able to see it closer to see if the bung is part of that actual unit?
It's not. It's separate. So,
Okay,
but I just
all right.
need to get. See. This is the unit itself. So it's just a standard airlock, basically.
Yeah.
So I just need to get it. Get a bung from the local homebrew store, and just one that will fit on an Erlenmeyer flask. And then, theoretically, I'll be able to pull up my cell phone and track the progress of it. You can see this. Can you see that?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So
that's way easier than pouring out and reading a gravity from a hydrometer or refractometer or anything.
Yeah.
Well, it'd have to be a hydrometer.
Totally, completely, and absolutely unnecessary thing to purchase.
I disagree. I disagree. There's absolutely value to this.
Oh, there's value to it for sure. This is one of those things, though, that you've been doing this long enough, and you've spent all your money on your equipment. You don't have any major equipment to buy, and you're like, all right, my birthday's coming up. I'm going to buy this.
It'd be fun one day is to compile like a top 5 list of the most unnecessary homebrew products.
Yeah. So this is definitely on that list for me. It's the corny keg scale, the digital corny keg scale.
I remember this.
You remember this thing? Yeah,
I do.
This is on that list for me. This is so completely unnecessary.
Yes, this I agree with. Yeah. I could justify I could justify the airlock before I could justify this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, go back to it.
Sean,
let's look at that even closer.
Oh, sure. Okay, so Sean says there's a submersible version of the airlock version. Sean, is that what you're saying? Yeah. So this is look at this thing. All right. So this is a Wi-Fi enabled scale that not only tells you how much beer is left, but also tells you as you're pouring it. Let's see if I can find a picture of it.
Is it how much pressure is on it?
No, it tells you there's no picture of it, but it tells you with your last pour how much did you pour. So for each pour, it tells you how much you poured out. Like, was it 12 ounces or 13 ounces?
Okay. So it's by calculating the difference between the before and after volume and the
weight.
All right.
Weight before, weight after, gravity of beer.
Yeah.
Boom.
That's what's missing in my life is knowing the exact volumes that I'm pouring into a glass. Yeah.
Okay. So Sean, now you just drop it in the fermenter. So what do you drop in the fermenter? I want to know this, because if there's another option,
type that into the website you're on. Just say, submersible.
Okay, so what submersible? What submersible?
Are you on More Beer or something like that?
No, this is Plato's website.
Okay, go to More Beer and type that in.
Okay, let me see. This is turned into a
it's
product
Bluetooth
placement.
gravity to your phone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, See, this is why we need a promo code. See, we joke about this, but this is now free product placement for these companies.
It is. Let's see, Bluetooth. Grandfather control box.
By the way, speaking of free plugs, anybody who's in the Chicagoland area this weekend, head out to Mad Hatchet Brewing out of Shorewood, Illinois. They have a birthday cake IPA that is fantastic and has a great story behind it too.
Birthday cake night. IPA.
Yes.
Sounds sweet. Is it?
Well, it's no. Trust me, that beer is straight up birthday cake. Straight up birthday cake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sean, this isn't what you're talking about, is it? This is I don't think this is but this is way expensive. Basically, it looks like you take
What is that?
Looks like you take some of your beer and you put it through this thing and it does calculations for measurement of gravity and everything, but no, that can't be right. Bluetooth beer gravity. Okay, I've heard of the Tilt before, the Tilt Hydrometer, which this is cool. Well, that's not helpful, Sean. Don't remember. Yeah, the Tilt is very cool.
Okay.
It's a hydrometer that you put. I don't think this is what he is talking about. But it is a hydrometer that does. It is your bad, Sean. It is your bad.
You're good, man.
No, you're good. Yeah. You put this in a in a cylinder like you do with a regular hydrometer, and it gives you a digital readout of your gravity. And the nice part is it can adjust for temperature and take all the guesswork and calculations out of a gravity reading. You just basically kind of drop it in and boom, you're done on that. And that one is Bluetooth, but I don't think that's what he's talking about. So, Sean, if you remember that,
that's quite a piece though that you just looked at. Wow.
Yeah, they're very cool. Yeah, no, they're very cool, but I don't the reason why I'm looking at the Play-Doh versus this one is the Play-Doh will let you track continuously down to 0, whereas the Tilt is still kind of that point in time thing, which as far as like getting the gravity, doing the temperature adjust and or even doing the alcohol adjust on a refractometer, I don't have any particular problem with that. I want something that I can put it in, pull it up on my phone and say, how close am I to terminal gravity in real time?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
See?
Yep.
Justified the purchase right there.
Yeah, if I could bill it to a nice place. Somebody give us money so I can bill it to a nice place. To brew.
So we can have budgets for such things.
Oh man.
All
right. So how's your fermentation going? Have you hit high Kreuzen?
I hit high Kreuzen between day 1 and day 2.
Okay. That's with all you pitched, that's not surprising.
Right. So exactly. And I did a good aeration before I pitched the yeast. So then the Kreuzen went high. I did not do a blow off. But fortunately I had enough headspace that it covered it just fine. So all good there. So go ahead. Hello.
Hey, Hello? You there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I lost you for a second. I was going to say, have you ever thought about using firm cap? I know we've talked about it briefly before, but even in those situations,
this would have been a great opportunity to use firm cap. I've asked the question about firm cap at Brew and Grow one time, and the response to me was it had become unavailable in the market. Now, this was quite a long time ago. And I just never asked again. So now, I mean, we've talked about this before because you do not have to use a lot of firm cap in order for it to be effective. So like, wasn't the bottle that you bought, I mean, that was going to last you for like 2 years.
Yeah, it's tiny, and it'll probably last me for at least another year.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I got
something may have, I don't know if something happened between when you bought that and when I asked about it, and I haven't asked about it since, and it's entirely possible that you can find it now. But at least at that moment in time, it was not around.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, then, sorry. The reason why I asked about the high Kreuzen isn't that when you were supposed to pitch a bunch of your hops?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. Well, and that's a good point. So that's more difficult to tell if you're using something like firm cap. Like when are you at high Kreuzen? How do you know?
Well, it still foams, just not nearly as high.
Right.
So it's not like a still pond or anything.
Right.
But yeah, I guess with something like that,
Yeah.
I guess Sean, you've made hazies. How do you know? Because I imagine you're not looking at the foam to see high Kreuzen. Do you just pitch your hops a day later, or what do you do for that?
Or do you guys do a lot of dry hopping when you make IPAs?
Well, with a hazy, isn't it kind of standard issue?
I don't think so. You don't have. I don't think you really have to do dry hop additions. You have to whirlpool, and you're going to have late additions. But you know, I don't think that's par for the course that everything is dry hopped.
A high Kreuzen addition? Yeah.
If I'm wrong, yeah, please tell me.
Okay. Huh. All right.
I'm nervous about how wrong I might be on this.
Hey, wrong is subjective. Yeah, especially with something like this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, anyways, going further. So there will be a second dry hop. So I will take out the double dry hop all hazies. First dry hop 1 Brix from final.
Okay, so that's not high Kreuzen. That's near the end of primary.
Late. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I have questions.
Interesting.
Okay,
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my plan is that I will. I'm taking the first dry hop out this Saturday, which will be at day 5. I'll probably give the beer a couple more days on the yeast cake that's there in primary, and then I'll transfer the beer to a secondary, and then I'll do the second dry hop at that point. So that's another 2 ounces, and that addition's 3 days. And at that point, then I'm done.
At that point, then you're done. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So Sean's schedule 7-day dry hop, and then 3 days is standard. Okay. Wow. I don't know why I got the impression that, I mean, I know a lot of IPAs and hazies are double or are dry hopped, but I didn't know that if that was standard.
Yeah. It's not just you. I have definitely heard of a high Kreuzen edition for a hazy as well. So it's definitely not just you that came around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I've also heard what Sean did, which is, track the fermentation in towards the end of the primary, pitch some hops in too.
Right.
Yeah. Dry hop is where you get it hazy. Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. So the haze is you're going to get from the hops in there.
I don't think that's the only area that it gets its haze from, because the recipe I did have a pound of oats, and that's one piece of it. I did not use Whirlflock in the boil. That's another area for haze, because that's one of the clearing agents they usually use. And then the last part is you end up skipping the cold crash stage too. So so those are the 3 contributors to the haze, as to my understanding. And the dry hop, I'm sure, is a part of that, but I think those were kind of the 3 main areas to my understanding.
So here, let me get this straight. You don't add clarifying agent. You don't do bittering hops. You don't do a cold crash. Was this beer made by just a lazy person?
You mean the original structure
The original hazing
of the haze?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? That's a great question. That's a great question because, well, I mean, there's a lot of rules in this type of beer that just end up being broken.
Oh yeah, that's
yeah. I mean,
that's kind of
like
what I'm
remember
thinking.
what I was saying before about the early hop editions that are not part of this. That's just one piece of it.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I don't think I have Sean's email address. Do you?
Yes. Here,
Okay.
I'll send it to you in the private chat. So.
Oh, send it. Okay, that worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
So keep talking. It's it'll take me a second to find.
All right. Cool. So while you're doing that, yes, I definitely I looked up and found firm cap on more beer. So if it was out of the market for a little while, it seems to be back. Firm
right,
cap S foam control. They sell it in little 1 ounce bottles for $5, and they say add 2 drops per gallon at start of fermentation. Comes in an eyedropper for easy use. Good for
is that when you do your additions?
Yeah, before I put it in the catalyst before I dump everything in, or I also did it in the corny keg as well.
Okay.
And it says it's good for about 50 batches of beer. So I guess it depends on how often you're brewing, but it's going to last a while.
Yeah.
So all right, now it's your turn because I'm going to email him.
Okay. All right. What else am I missing from the brew day? So, one of the takeaways from the brew day, I had a good mash. This is only my second batch using my my new pump system and the valves that I installed into my brew kettle. My one area of failure with this past brew day was measuring my water, because you have new areas of dead space potentially within not only your mash tun, but now your brew kettle, because you're not pouring your entire water volumes. So my pre-boil water volume was 7 gallons, which is too high. It should have been, a little over 6, considering it called for an hour-long boil. So I ended up having to boil 90 minutes just to compensate for that. So it would have been
What was your target end volume? 5 gallons?
Pre-boil? No, it would have been a little over 6. You lose a gallon. You lose a gallon with an hour-long boil.
So with your system, you only lose a gallon.
Maybe a little bit more, but within the area of that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, mine is definitely.
Oh yeah, you have that big burner that you use. So are you burning off more than that?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking up right now, because I think I target. Oh, that's 90-minute boil. That's not fair. 1 second. Here, we'll do the deck building shandy. Yeah, I target 6.7 as my starting pre-boil.
To get you down to how much after boil? 5?
About 5.3.
So you're about 1.4. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, and I think that has to do with, like you said, I have a pretty vigorous boil with that burner that I have, that Hellfire burner. But I also, you're working. What size kettle do you have at these days?
9 gallons.
Okay, so mine's 15. So it's a wider opening too, and I think that contributes to the boil off as well.
Yeah, it would. That's a good point.
Okay. Yeah. So other than that, did you hit your numbers?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, once I redid the recipe with the longer boil time and with the DME additions, it was. I mean, I was like 66% efficiency, and was within like 0.01 gravity of where I was supposed to end at. So
okay.
So I mean, for a brew day where the game got changed very late in the overall day, I'm very satisfied with how it ended up. So
Okay, good.
yeah. And fermentation's been aggressive, but it's slowed noticeably over the last 2 days. I don't have one of these fancy products, so I can't say on this show as of the present time what the gravity is, but I'm sure it's probably got a ways to go. From 1083, and I'm at day 5. I'm sure the secondary is going to be necessary to bring it down to a quote unquote beer level.
If we were, following the traditional rules and whatnot, you should know, because we should be taking hydrometer readings as it goes.
You know what? That is a great point.
Yeah.
Yes, because there's a lot of recipes that say yes. Watch the gravity that closely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, let's talk about this. The one time that I followed gravities that close, I was making wine, and I was making wine in an open fermentation environment. No airlock, none of that. You can't do that with beer.
Sure you can. Why couldn't you?
Well, okay, you could, but you're opening the beer to infection.
Yeah, I mean, so that's part of the reason why
I would not recommend to anybody that they do that.
So that's part of the reason why, when I have done it just to see where it's at, I've definitely, because before we had talked about like putting in a thief and taking that and sanitizing that thief, and you could do that, and that will limit that potential for infection quite a bit. But when I've done it lately, I've definitely taken an sanitized eyedropper and grabbed it and done it on a refractometer, and then just done some calculations to see where it's at.
But that doesn't work.
Why not?
The refractometer, after you add yeast? You know this, right?
And well, I know that you can't just take the straight reading. Yeah. But I also know that you can run it through a calculator that's in Beersmith, and you can get a reading out of it. You tell it what the original gravity was, what the reading is, and then it says, okay, you here's your actual gravity. When I tell you my final gravity, that's how I'm doing it these days.
So you're using a refractometer all the way to the final gravity, but using a calculator in Beersmith to discern what the true number is.
Correct.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you tell it what the reading is, you tell it what the original gravity was.
Okay.
And then it does its magic in the back end, and you get a number.
I've seen pieces where they say refractometer readings, but I'm not drilled into it that far. And wow.
Yeah. Huh. In fact, if you have Brewer's Friend or Beersmith Mobile, they've got them built into that. So if you can have it on your phone.
That's quite a revelation. Really, it is. You're breaking the rule of you can use your refractometer all day during your brew day, all the way to the end to get your original gravity, and then that's it. Once you add heat, the refractometer is done. That's at least the rule.
Well, yeah, and as far as taking straight readings, you're absolutely correct. You can no longer trust the refractometer. Right. But running it through a calculator, you can regain that trust. Now, as far as how accurate is a calculated number based on a refractometer versus a hydrometer, I'm not sure. Never tried it. But, it's always been, like the final gravity that I've read on a calculated refractometer reading has always been pretty close to the final gravity that I've been looking for. So I assume it can't be too far off.
I would love to experiment with that and see that side by side. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some experiments in my head now, because that's another thing. That's another thing you could easily do with a starter.
Yeah. If you know, because measuring your original gravity is very simple. After you add your DME, boil it off, do all that. Yeah, we were talking earlier about measuring how far that goes down.
Crash it down to 0, and then decant it off into a graduated cylinder instead of just down the sink or whatever you typically do. and then put your hydrometer in there, take a sample of it, put it on your refractometer, and see how they compare. All right.
Writing this down.
We will report back after our next brew day. All right. Have you tried your pressure fermented Marzen yet?
Yes.
And?
So I took a howler of that with me to Joliet last night. No, I'm sorry, not Joliet. I took it to Mad Hatchet in Shorewood, Illinois, who was gracious enough to host us. I'm fairly pleased with how the product is right now, the Marzen.
Okay.
It's malty, and I mean malty. It's I wonder if some of what I'm seeing is because the beer is young, and I've seen from a lot of several of my recent batches where the early product has evolved quite quickly. So I'm kind of holding off on this right now. But the simple thing that I think it's missing right now is the carbonation, which sounds very strange because I harped for a very long time about how high the pressure was on the spunding valve throughout the entire fermentation process. Well, judge this how you want, but it's not overly carbonated right now. Now, It's in a keg, so that's okay. That's very fixable. But, you know, I walked into this thinking, like, this needs to go right to serving temperature because this is going to be a carbonation bomb. Well, right now it's not.
Okay.
So we'll just build off of that.
Okay.
So,
well,
I guess coming for full circle with this, I mean, there's two things. Number one, I think I'm going to have a really solid Marzen for the fall season. But second of all, I would not rate this spunding experiment very highly. As far as like, do I recommend to people that they go out and do this? I kind of feel like the spunding thing was a little more trouble than it was worth. That's my opinion.
And I understand with the troubles that you were having now, I think I got the spunding valve wired a little bit better than what you were experiencing. And I'm not sure if that's my valve or if I just got to learn from, stand on your guys' shoulders as to the problems that you were having. But the reading on mine has pretty much stayed at about 6 PSI the whole time.
Bastard.
And so I think it's pretty much done. So I'm going to crash it in my keezer and then transfer it over to my other keg like I plan to do. But I am going to take a quick reading off of it to make sure that just tap a little bit off of it to make sure that it is in fact done.
Okay.
But yeah, that's yeah. So far it hasn't been that bad of a process.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Well, you're still ongoing, so you haven't tapped it yet, correct?
I have not. I have not tapped it yet, and I don't think it's going to come out very carbonated. I think I am going to have to force carb it. But I think it's already going to. I think it's going to have a little bit of carbonation, so it'll probably force carb faster.
Yep.
Yep. So there's a benefit there. Now, I'm also doing an experiment with it where I'm basically doing a lager at ale temperatures. So if I'm able to achieve lager quality beer at ale temperatures, then yeah, it's probably something I'm going to do it again.
Remind me again, what yeast are you using for this?
It's the steam yeast from White Labs. I want to say it was 816, but that doesn't sound right now that I'm saying it.
Is that one of the yeasts where the temperature range is between like 50 and 70?
It's not quite that high. No, it's like 50 and 63 or something, but it is a little bit of the lager yeast. It does trend a little warmer.
So this sounds it sounds like it's in the same league as like a 3470 that blends both lager and ale characters. So and that's a compliment because 3470 I think is a great yeast. Yeah,
it is absolutely.
Yeah. So okay,
and you can tell because we both know the number off the top of our head. So, so I mean, I'm going to check it out. If it's ready, I'm going to cold crash it and transfer it this weekend, and we'll see.
Cold crashing this weekend.
Yes, if it's ready. Yeah. I'll
okay.
cold crash it this weekend. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. So, but you had me. I'll tell you what. You had me all paranoid about the spunding valve and it not, cooperating with me. And I was out there checking it because, my fermentation chamber is out in my brew shed, and I'm inside the house. And I pitched it, and then I went to bed. And I was thinking, well, what if like this somehow goes up to like 200 psi and this keg explodes overnight?
Well, that came up on this on the webcast because aren't our soda kegs built to withstand pressures of like 180 psi? Isn't that like how high they go?
Very high, but but again, I don't think the dial on that only goes up to like 15 psi.
15, yeah, exactly, yeah. So beyond that, who knows? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But honestly, I don't think there's a yeast out there anywhere that's going to top out 180 psi.
I would be curious, what the psi of your beer actually got up to.
Yeah, that's a great question. I have no idea. All I have is the 15 and just seeing it was, going off the scale the entire time. But honestly, there's a chance that number may not have even been accurate, because if that was at 25, 30 psi the whole time, then I should be pouring a very healthy carbonated beer right now. And
so I thought about that. And I don't think you would. And it's because like with forced carbonation, you're adding in like as soon as it's absorbing it, it's adding in more CO2 as it goes. With carbonation under pressure, it's not adding it in as quickly as that is. It's not as ready amount. So you get a higher pressure, but I don't think you get as much volume of CO2. And I think that's why you didn't see as much forced carbonation as you might have.
The results definitely back that up.
Okay.
It's tough for me to kind of like construct that in my head why that would result that way though.
Yeah,
pressure is pressure. That's it.
You'd think, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think. So yeah.
Whatever. I mean, it's back to my original point. I'm not walking away from this spunding thing feeling like I learned a whole lot, and I don't feel like this really simplified my overall process so significantly that I would rush to do this again.
Okay.
Now,
so would you put it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think did we talk about Goldfinger on the last webcast?
Sounds vaguely familiar.
I texted you about this. That may have been
then it. No. Yes. No.
All right.
We didn't.
I'm going to give another free plug. There's a new brewery that just opened up in Downers Grove, Illinois within the last 2 weeks, and it's called Goldfinger. And it is a brewery devoted to German-style lagers. And they've built up their brewery to be to do decoction mashing, which I have all kinds of questions about. Like, I know there's ways to do that, on a large scale, which obviously they've honed in on and have beers out there that are a part of that. My knowledge of decoction is still manual and exhausting. Meaning that you're stirring a mash with a wooden spoon the entire time and sifting boiling hot grains to increase your mash temperature. So So lots of questions there. But anyways, one of the things on their opening weekend menu that they called out was all of their beers were naturally fermented using the same methods that we did.
Huh.
Yeah.
Using fermentation under pressure.
Yeah.
Huh. And I assume when you drank them, they were in fact fermented. I mean, not fermented, but pressurized.
Yeah. No issues there. Yeah, I tell you, the beers were impressive. I mean, they were great classic examples of German style lagers. They had 3 available that weekend. They had a Vienna, they had a classic lager, and they had a Pilsner.
What is a classic lager?
Classic lager was like 5.5%. Poured in a kind of an Oktoberfest style mug,
like an American lager.
American lager, or maybe even comparable to like a Heineken or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, impressive.
Huh. All right. Cool. Yeah, that's another one. So how do they compare? And this might not be fair at this point if they've only got 3 on tap, but how do they compare to Kinslager?
So the difference between them and Kinslager is openly being creative with their lagers. Goldfinger, their focus seems to be on creating just traditional basic lagers rather than trying to reinvent people's definition of what a lager is. Now, they've been open for 2 weeks. Do they have plans on upping, their creativity in the future? Maybe. I don't get that impression though. I think they're saying that we're kind of a roots oriented. Let's stick to tradition type of beers. And honestly, there is absolutely a place for that. If they maintain that, I think they will do well. I really do. That's a unique focus, and they will stand out in the crowd with that. So
yeah, I'm with you on that, and makes me wonder. Like, do they follow Ron Heitzgebot? And basically, you live in the area. It's one town north of a nice place to live. Go talk to them and get them on the show, because I got all kinds of questions.
Honestly, I sent them an email. I've invited him already. He has not responded. We know him too through the area homebrew club. We'll talk about this off air.
Okay.
He came during the time after you had moved to Virginia, but it's somebody both I and the club know.
Did we like his beer when he was at the club?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. Yeah, you know what? Now that you think about it, our run has included at least 4 or 5 head brewers in that same position.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, geez. That's got me thinking. Anyways, story for a private conversation.
Yeah. So,
what else? Lager wise, so back to the natural fermentation. I guess that's kind of a callback to tradition, but yeah. I guess I wonder, and he could obviously answer this, but how far does that take him? Because he's certainly, serving with a degree of pressure to push through the tubes.
Right.
So is it, is that just enough to get him started, or does that get him all the way to, pressurized to the point of being able to serve?
That's a really good question, because then it might be like we're kind of running into where it gets you to carbonated but not super bubbly, and then so he supplements with some CO2 and then serves obviously with CO2 as well. So
right
yeah.
So going full circle with that, Goldfinger Brewing Company out of Downers Grove, Illinois. Check them out.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful room too. It really is.
You also mentioned since the last time we spoke about what I think you said you considered a top 5 brewery over in, I think, Indiana.
Oh, yes.
You want
Yes.
to talk
Can we
about
talk
this?
about this?
Yeah, we can
Yes,
talk about
exactly. Yeah. So I went on a hiking trip this past weekend, which took me to the Indiana Dunes, and we decided to make a stop off after we were done hiking in Valparaiso, which there was some good food there, couple good places to visit, and then on our way back to the highway, we said let's find a brewery, which we did, and we did not have one predetermined, so we had to kind of consult the maps and say, hey, what's around here, and we ended up just from a list. We kind of just put our finger on the map and said we're going here. So that's what we did.
Nice.
Where is it here? The place we ended up is called Chesterton Brewery, named after Chesterton, Indiana. And I had flights, and I want to make sure that I have pictures of both. Yes, I do. So I first had a flight which included a Brut IPA, a English style porter, a New England style, not very high ABV, and a traditional IPA. And the beers were so good that I ordered a second flight. And Sean is about to join us, but I do want to finish this case before we dive into our New England's conversation. Hello, Sean. Welcome,
hey,
sir.
Sean.
Okay, so after that, I had another IPA. I had a cherry style oatmeal stout, a coffee porter, and then get ready for this, a habanero flavored habanero mango flavored IPA. So that's 8 beers that I had in 2 separate flights. And
so
not only can I give compliments on some of the individual beers that I had, I don't believe I've ever had a flight of 8 beers where every single beer was not only delicious but worth traveling for.
Wow.
And yes.
So Jason, I hopped off just because I didn't want the audio to reverb when I was signing on. But what's the name of this brewery? Did we talk about this last night? I think we did.
This is Chesterton Brewery out of Chesterton, Indiana, near the border.
Yeah, because I think when you said you went to Valparaiso, I was like, oh, you went to Impossible, right?
Yes. Misbehaving. Impossible is here in Illinois. Yeah.
My bad. Oh, man,
I tell you, Misbehaving has elderberry meads in a bottle, which that was delicious. Yeah.
Those are my special occasion meads. Like they just sit in the fridge until like I have like a good group of people over. I was like, let's do this.
Yeah. So, anyways,
real quick about elderberry.
Yeah. So, anyways, finishing my praise for Chesterton Brewery. Really is just a really, really impressive small brewery. They have slow cooked meats too. They had a nice food menu, nice environment, and it was a tiny place too. So just like one of those. I just lost. Oh, here we're back. It was a place that just worked. So if you're up
meats and beer,
slow cooked meats and beer,
What's
exactly.
not to like. Yeah.
Well, the other thing, well, if you've ever, let me give a compliment to one other brewery that does the same thing. If anybody's ever traveling to Louisville, Kentucky, there's a brewery out there called Against the Grain, which does feature stickers from of course our common JBG, and it's right there in downtown Louisville, and it's a fantastic brewery. That was well worth going to too. So there's my plugs.
Is that the one that's like?
It's in a
Is
minor
Against the
league
Grain the
baseball
one that's like
stadium.
in the stadium? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
I'm done there. So, anyways, there we go with two outside of Illinois breweries. Now we're coming back into Illinois, and we're talking to Sean from Mad Hatchet Brewing Company. Cheers to you, buddy. Thank you so much for signing on.
Yeah, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to type a lot. I'll just see if they'll let me hop on after dinner.
Yes, no, we're happy to have you. I'm sure you have a lot to say on this subject.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, any professional brewery now, like if you don't have a hazy on tap, I mean, unless like with the exception of Dovetail, and I think you said Goldfinger earlier, they got their thing, but it's like, you want a hazy on tap because that's what sells right now. And so I was one of the late ones to be hazy's kind of hit when about a year and a half before, probably about 2 years before Mad Hatchet opened, and I was not on board with them. I was like, no, give me my West Coast. And I remember actually, I just had a Facebook memory pop up 2 days ago. I think Brando brewed his first one, and it was 2 years ago. And I just checked into his beer on Facebook and called him a sellout. So that's how late adapter I was to it. But honestly, my opinion on it has changed now that I see the people drinking them and then what they drink later. Because most people come into a brewery and tell you they don't like hops. They don't like bitterness. Hops are delicious. I don't care who you are. So it's a great kind of gateway beer to get those people from drinking, the malty stuff or the lighter stuff to, hey, try this. Oh, wow, this is good. Then in a couple months, they're drinking the big boy 80, 90, 100 IBU beers.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that being like a gateway beer to more hoppy beers, but that does make a lot of sense because the flavor is very distinct between the traditional West Coast IPAs, like you were saying.
Yeah, and then it's aggravating for any brewer to hear someone say they don't like hops. It's like, no, hops are, God's gift to the world, like.
Wow, that's high praise. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a big hop head. I've always have been, but I fell in love with craft beer on those West Coast IPAs, super danky,
Okay.
Stuff. But yeah.
So it sounds like you follow the Ben Franklin school of beer. Beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've been known to I think actually the brewery posted a picture of it once, but our brewery is like open to our tap room. Like you watch us brew, like we have a sign that says "Don't feed the brewers" on the wall. But
I did not see
that,
but I love that.
Yeah, it's kind of what you feel like. You got when we're brewing back there, it's kind of like, we're a zoo animal or whatever. Like, what are they doing? But I've been known to when we're getting ready to dry hop, especially a hazy, and I'm pouring it in the fermenter and the tap room's open, I take a big hit of it, sniff a bit. This is pre-COVID, by the way. Yeah, I've stopped doing that during COVID times.
Yeah.
So if we could draw just kind of a quantity example that we're talking about. So what are the volumes of the fermenters you guys have there at Mad Hatchet?
We have three barrel fermenters, and we're buying two. Shortly here, we're getting 2 7-barrel fermenters.
3 barrel. Okay.
Yeah.
So
and then we're adding 2 7s.
Right. Okay. So for a 3 barrel, what's a dry hop addition volume wise? How much hops is that?
Total dry hop throughout the whole hazy.
Well, let's break this down. Let's say a first edition.
Okay, a first edition should be normally for us will be around 4 pounds. I remember reading this when I was home brewing, and I did attempt to home brew a couple hazies before Mad Hatchet. Okay. But basically they say 2 ounces a gallon is what you want to shoot for on your total dry hop, or no, total hops with your Whirlpool hops so you'd be looking at, for a 5-gallon batch, you'd be looking at least 10 ounces of hops. You want So we normally, it depends on the alpha acid of the hop. We always shoot for about 20 IBUs on them because we want the IBUs to be there, but we don't want them to take over the beer. So we always shoot for
all
around
being late additions, of course. Right.
Yeah. So we don't put anything in the boil. Everything the boil gets done, we whirlpool, and we wait till the whirlpool gets down to 200 degrees, because less alpha acid extraction, and then we'll add our hops. Normally it's around 2 pounds. Like I said, it depends on the alpha acids we're using. We're trying to get about 20 IBUs because that's where all your IBUs are coming from, is that whirlpool hop. Your dry hop's not going to produce, obviously not going to produce any IBUs.
Right.
Then we normally have about a 4 or 5 pound hop addition. It works out to day 3. If you're not using Kvik, if you're using a normal human yeast or a normal, I don't know how else to say that because Kvik's its own thing.
There's a whole different set of rules around Kvik yeast.
Yeah,
I think did I say that right? Kvik?
I think it's Kvik. I don't know.
Is it?
But I've heard it said a bunch of ways.
You could very well be right.
Yeah, but I used to measure the gravity because everything I read was within 1 Brix of your final gravity is when you pitch it. We started off pitching it high, or we would pitch the yeast and the hops at the same time, the first dry hop.
Okay.
And it got a little I don't know if green's the right word, like spicy when we did that. So we switched to doing it within 1 Brix of final. I used to measure it, but if you're pitching, we pitch the same yeast every time for our hazies. It's and then it's normally day 3. You said you pitched London, we pitched London Fog.
Okay.
So then we'll do that, and then that starts our 7-day timer. So we have I think I said a 7 and a 5 day earlier. I meant a 7 and a 3 day. We do a 7.
No, that's what came up, 7 to 3.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Yeah. So that starts our 7-day dry hop timer. And then, so 4 days after that, we pitch our second dry hop, which is normally a lot smaller. It's like 2 pounds. So probably on a homebrew scale, you're talking like an ounce for your second dry hop.
I think my schedule is like 2 ounces for the first one, and then another 2 ounces for the last one. So
yeah,
am I really off base if I'm doing my first edition at high Kreuzen, like I was saying?
No. I just there's been plenty of hazies I've tasted that were done that way that tasted just fine.
Okay.
And that's just something I read, and it's kind of what we stick by. But now, like I said, I used to measure the gravity to make sure we were where we were supposed to be at. Jeez, these glasses are dirty. And then, but now it's like I said, it's every time it's 3 days. So I just stop measuring it, and I just pitch it on the 3rd day after we pitch. The great thing about hazies and the reasons that they sell, number 1. And number 2 is they're in and out of the tank so quick. Now on a homebrew scale, you're talking about moving to secondary. If you were able to keep that racking yard above your yeast cake, you wouldn't even need to go to a secondary. You could rack out of your original primary. The whole thing is they're quick beers. And then you throw that Kvik in that a lot of people are using now, and they're done in 7 days. Because you pitch, you dry hop the first day, it's fermented out by the next day, and then you're with cold crash, you're looking at 10 days. We do cold crash ours, and that was another thing you said too, where you said you don't cold crash it, is you want to cold crash to get the hops out, because there's a ton of dry hops in there, so you do want to cold crash.
Okay, all right. So keep that part of the process.
Traditionally, with a hazy, the haze is supposed to come from the dry hop. It's that dry hop. It's that I can't think of the word. It's a science word where you dry hop during that while the yeast is going, and that's what creates that haze. Now, I'm not saying that every brewery in the world isn't adding flaked oats.
Mine did.
we use London Fog because it's a hazy yeast and it probably doesn't have the best flocculation on it. Actually, one of my favorite homebrew score sheets was my JBG hazy sheet because it's like, this beer is delicious, but it's too clear. And I was like, fuck yeah, it was. It took me that long to make clear beer, you know? I was proud of it. But yeah, so trying to think, catching up on all the stuff I don't know. I think that's all I got. Unless you have any more questions.
You know, your comment is interesting to me about how quickly that a New England can turn around out of the tanks. So,
yeah.
But if you drew lines around this, so you got primary, you've got probably 2 to 3 days before you reach that 1 Brix where you do your first edition, and then you've got 7 days on a dry hop from there, and then an additional 3 with your second. Correct?
Yes. Well, no.
Okay.
The 7 days goes into the 3. Your 7 days is 7 days.
Okay.
And then your 3 day is on the math 4th day.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you got So you got. Oh wow. Okay. So you have a point of overlap.
Yeah.
Of where you got 2 different.
Brew day to a cold crash is 7 days. If you're pitching your dry hop with the yeast. Actually, whenever your first dry hop goes in, and I know breweries that do it, they pitch with the yeast, and I know breweries that do it, you know, like we do. And then, like I said, I've stuck by that 1 Brix above final because we had a couple of our first hazies that we brewed. It just came out a little green. I guess that's the best word, green. Yeah, they just they settled out after a week, but they weren't our proudest thing that we've ever brewed. I will say that. They weren't dumpable by any, like, we've dumped a couple beers, but none of our hazies because of that reason. But yeah, they weren't. We wanted them to be better, and that's the great thing about going pro is when I was killing it as a home brewer, I was brewing 20 times a year. We brewed 84 times in 1 year here. Yeah. So, you guys have done it where you look back on the last, like a brew day a month ago or 2 months ago, and you're like, man, why the fuck did I do that? That was stupid.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. Well, I mean, I have, but George and I are talking on a weekly basis on this webcast, and obviously, you and I have had conversations. Paulie's been part of conversations, so it's always evolving, and I'm sure you can relate to that even on a pro scale. Because I mean, how many times are you talking to other pro breweries out of the JBG with these types of questions?
Dude, I had a notebook out when I didn't watch it live, but I watched your guys' live broadcast with Brando, and we had a hard seltzer that we put on, and I was taking notes on what he was saying. I don't know if that's kind of slimy. I hope not, but Brando knows we love him. So
yes, yeah. Brando's great people.
Yeah, I'm drinking out of a workforce glass tonight. So
there you go.
Yeah. But no, yeah, it's brewing knowledge is really exponential now that we're not even, as a pro brewery, we're not 84 batches is nothing. We still both have our full-time jobs. Also Kevin, all 3 of us have our full-time jobs. But so I mean, we're brewing to keep up. But yeah, you take that, what you learned in a year, that's now 1/4 of a year. Because you brewed that often. I think brewing knowledge is exponential and never ending. You always find a better way to do something. And I remember kegging, we used to go to Workforce to clean our kegs and watching Steve and Brando brew and just watching just dumb stuff. Oh, like from the chiller, they had a T-valve in there going into the fermenter so they could dump the sanitizer to the drain. And then once the sanitizer was done, it was all beer. Then they opened the fermenter. I was like, that's the stupidest thing, but it's ingenious, you know, like it's, why didn't I think of that type stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah. I mean, it's fun, man. I mean, that's why we do it. You know, if you stop learning, you're just doing the same thing all the time, this wouldn't be fun.
You're not growing at that point. No doubt about it. So there's a point in the comments that I'd like to bring up, and before I go into the content, I'd like to send a special hello out there to Joe Bobby, who has placed a couple of comments on the threads. Hello, Joe Bobby. Cheers to you. Joe Bobby hosts a podcast called Average Joe's Above Average Beer Podcast, which I believe Mad Hatchet has been on in the past.
I'll be right back. I got to do something since he's watching.
Oh, he is. All right. Well, honestly, Joe, this is super cool that you're here on the webcast and part of the comments. So, cheers to you. It really is a fantastic beer podcast. So cheers to you. And I was going to make point about one of the terms that Joe mentioned in the comments here, and I'll wait for Sean to get back because I'll wait his context about it. But oh boy, what have we got here? Oh, look at this. He's got T-shirts printed. Oh, George, what are we doing?
I almost put this on today, and I was like, no, I'm going to go with the JBG shirt today. And now I regret it because that'd have been such a sweet transition.
That really is a very cool logo. Nice color on that T-shirt too.
I actually never met him, and the first time I ever met him, I recognized him from the caricature of his logo. I was like, "Are you the podcast guy?" Like I met him. It was Will County's opening day. And I was like, "Dude, are you the one doing all the podcasts?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah,
really?
You look like that cartoon."
Anyways, back to the content, and I'm wondering if there's some overlap here. So I'm going to mention those in the same sentence. So we're talking about hops and some of the characters that could carry over from dry hopping. And Joe threw out a term in the comments called biotransformation. And
yes,
I've also heard a similar term, which I wonder if it means something similar or maybe even the same thing. But there's a risk with dry hopping that's characterized as hop burn. Are we talking about the same thing?
No, I think what Joe's talking about is that term I was trying to think of earlier. That biotransformation is where you get that haze from the initial dry hop. Hop burn.
I see.
Hop burn is when you left it on the dry hop too long normally. And green means the same thing. It tastes green.
Right.
That's normally that hop burn where you let the hops hang in there too long. And that's why when you do with these hazies, you want to make sure that you have time you dry hop it 7 days later, you better be transferring it to your wherever you're going to cold crash it. Or if you're not going to cold crash it, to a keg. And as at a homebrew scale, man, I did because I had the SS Brewtech conical fermenter, so I did do a little bit of cold crashing, but I mean, my beers would clear up in the keg just as well as they would clear up in that thing. So that was like you're just going to spend, I think I spent $700 on that fermenter, and it's like, well, I could have just done this in the kegs, but I liked it. It was worth it I literally went from primary to secondary by opening a valve. I would dump the yeast into a bucket. And I was done.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
One thing you guys were talking about earlier was Fermicap. All I have to say is yes, 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 yes. That stuff is amazing.
Fermicap. Do you guys use that at the brewery?
Yeah, we use a commercial version of it. It's just called Defoamer, and it's made by the same people who make 5 Star, who make Star Sane.
Okay.
So,
all right.
So yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, how do you know when you reach high Kreuzen? But actually, that's the wrong question because you're measuring the bricks. That's when you know how to toss the hops in. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we used to measure the bricks. Now I just go by days.
Okay. All right.
But
that all makes perfect sense.
Dude, I was dumb when I was home brewing, and I bought that SS Brewtech half barrel fermenter, and I was planning on doing 10-gallon batches, and I bought a 15-gallon kettle, which I think we all can go, that's stupid. Because
George and I were less than a year in, and we bought a 15-gallon kettle, and we built up to 10-gallon batches.
Yeah, we were doing 10-gallon batches at the time.
Yeah,
right.
You're fighting that boil over the whole time.
Yes,
we
totally were.
Yeah.
If you're doing a 10-gallon batch, you're coming out of the mash tun at 13 gallons, right? That's what you should be around there, maybe 12 and a half. And then you're just sitting there. I had a little spray bottle until I found that Thermocap stuff. Add a couple drops of that. And I mean, if my lauder ran longer than it was, I would bring it to 14 gallons in that with that Thermocap stuff. And we still use that at the brewery. We got a 140-gallon kettle, and we come in with 127, and use that Thermocap stuff. And just once the boil's controlled, it's controlled. And I mean, you can go to the rim basically. You know, like you can really push it with that stuff. I mean, if you're going through, go ahead.
I was gonna say I've got the 15-gallon kettle, so I don't really worry about it anymore. But I was working on a 7.5-gallon kettle there for a little while, and that I definitely had to control the boil. And it was after I stopped using that I learned that Thermocap can be helpful to control the hot break and everything on there. I wish I had remembered that or known that when I was using that kettle, though.
If you have a big enough kettle, it's totally unnecessary. But if you're the guy who's sitting there with your spray bottle and spoon trying to get the boil under control so you don't boil over, it's a godsend. And I mean, it allows you to boil. I mean, even it's a weird batch size. I don't know why you do it, but like if you you said you had a 7-gallon kettle, or
no, like normally 7.5.
Yeah, normally you have 7.5, 10. If you had a 10, you could brew a 7.5 barrel. Like you can get more volume. Brewing takes the same time, whether Revolution's brewing 50 barrels at a time, or you're at home brewing 5 barrels. It takes the same amount of time, no matter how much you're brewing. Roughly.
It does.
So I mean, if you can get more volume, get more volume. I mean, no one's complained about more beer ever.
Yeah. I mean, I can easily do 10 gallons, a 10-gallon batch in my kettle. The limiting factor then becomes the mash tun and how much beer I can drink in a certain amount of time before I become sick of that style and want something new.
Sounds like you need some good friends down there that can help you out with that.
Which I've made some friends and they are helping me out with that. But right now it's kind of difficult to have a house party to get rid of beer, and so it's just I found that at this point 5 gallons is a good amount. By the time it's running out, I'm like, all right, I could stand for a change.
Yeah. Well, I was like notorious for leaving growlers on my neighbor's doorsteps when I needed. My chokehold was keg space. So I'd be like, man,
I don't know if you heard this before, but I've definitely traded beer for eggs before.
Farm fresh, right?
Farm fresh.
Farm fresh. So beer becomes currency, and I can relate to that in my own way. I've never traded beer for eggs, but I totally get that.
When the dollar comes, you might be onto something.
Yeah, seriously, yeah. Yeah.
I screw invest in beer.
Because when the power grid goes down, that's where the real trading begins.
Yeah.
And beer is going to be trading at a big premium, no doubt.
I think this quarantine has proven it. What the only 100%. Sales that have gone up during quarantine is alcohol sales.
Exactly. Well, I mean, even we talk about. I always say it in this context, and I'll never stop. We talked to Polly from the world famous Brew and Grow in Bolingbrook, Illinois, and what kind of run did they have on homebrewing supplies during those days? It was huge. Because You have,
Yeah.
I mean, number one, you have people that don't want to go out, but second of all, you have, I just lost my train of thought. Jeez, what's wrong with me? Take over for me, George. Crap.
I don't know what you were
that's what
saying.
beer does.
Yeah. Well,
You
okay,
lost your
okay.
train of
No,
thought. I wasn't even on the tracks.
Okay. All right. So, and you have, there's a lot of people that because their jobs may have been affected, just happen to find that they have a lot of time on their hands. Well, what's something you can do during that time? You can make beer. So that's, those things can go together. If you have a partial setup or you need to complete it, then you visit your local homebrew store. And that created a nice run on both equipment and ingredients. And, we've talked about that on here. It makes perfect sense.
For sure. I'm trying to find that Bluetooth tool.
Bluetooth?
I'm on my other,
the airlock? The
Yeah.
airlock thing that we looked at? Yeah.
Well, no, this thing was you just drop it in the fermenter and you could, see when primary had settled out without for me walking down to the basement. Just from your phone. It's kind of like, like when you're grilling, you have those grill thermometers. Just goes to your phone.
Right.
No, it's time to throw some more charcoal on.
It is the same concept. Yes, you're right about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I cannot find it though. I wonder if they took it off. I sold it on Facebook.
Have you ever seen the Play-Doh? Have you ever seen the Play-Doh device before, Sean?
So that's the one that was in the airlock?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it have a I'm gonna switch back to Googling. Does it have like a probe that sits down in the beer then? Or how does it
Sorry, try to repeat that.
Does it have like some sort of probe that sits down in your beer then and reads the gravity? Or
no, apparently it measures the blow off that goes through the airlock.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna find this. I'll get it for you guys by next week. You can be like, hey,
okay.
Remember that thing we wasted 9 hours talking about last live stream? We finally figured it out.
Oh, we'll be ready to talk about it again, no doubt.
Yeah, it works pretty well. What else were you guys talking about earlier? I'm trying to think now.
Let's go back into the comments. We had did we add lactose? Covered that. The answer was no.
Oh, yeah, because I think you
Submersible?
said your gravity was higher than you thought it was going to be. Or, I don't know, maybe I was skipping around.
My water volume was higher than I expected it to be. And I think that's because I didn't measure the brew kettle dead space with heating the water as well as I should have. Because I'm used to just heating water and just emptying out the kettle, and that's not the case now if I'm using a pump system.
That's one thing that threw me through the loop too, and it's a good thing to talk about, is that Beersmith, if you're adding lactose to anything, does not take that into account in your gravity or malto. So if you're doing a big stout, a milk stout, and your gravity, you're like, damn, I killed my pre-boil gravity was right on point, but my final gravity is insane. It's that lacto or malto that's not going to ferment out.
Right, but doesn't Beersmith know that? You're saying they don't?
No, it does not. That's the one.
Really?
Like that's the one thing on Beersmith. Other than that, I don't think you need another tool anymore. I think if you,
I agree. That seems like such a simple fix. Understanding that lactose is not fermentable. That's simple.
Dude, it sounds simple, but for days, I was trying to find out how much lactose equals this gravity point in this stuff. Like, I could not find a straight answer, except that everyone was seeing the same thing I was, that Beersmith wasn't calculating it. So
That's so
you
weird.
might be brewing let's say you're brewing a milk stout, like a middle of the road milk stout, and you're shooting for 1070.
Yeah.
But you added for a 5-gallon batch, you added a pound of lactose, and you came in at 1076. You're thinking you killed it that day. This thing's going to be a big boy, but it's not, because Beersmith's going to say the final gravity should be 1016. You're going to finish it like 1022.
Right.
So, which is good for a stout, because that's where you get that thick mouthfeel from, is that high finishing gravity. So,
yeah.
At least
cool.
my Jason stout, I like it.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, I've the milk stouts done properly. I'm definitely a fan of. Well, I'm hoping somebody from Beersmith's operations department may hear this, and this seems like a very simple and doable modification.
Oh, they're definitely tuned in right now, I think.
Yeah, I agree. We've talked up Beersmith in a huge way, and now we're just throwing tips your way. So there you go.
Subscriptions have gone up tremendously.
It has. Yes, thank you. Exactly. Yeah. Promo code Jason, as George likes to say. George is not going to be able to rejoin, and if it's okay, I think it's at a good time to wrap up. All good?
Yeah, sounds good, bud. Yeah,
good deal. Sean from Mad Hatchet Brewing Company, thank you so much for joining us last minute like this. This is great.
Oh, quick correction. You said that was Mad Hatchet's cake stout. That was our collaboration with Will County.
Yes. So, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah. I'll do it real quick too. So we Will County and Mad Hatchet are both in Shorewood, Illinois. So we had to collab at some point. So it had to happen, and we were discussing what we should do and drinking some beers, obviously, while we were discussing what we should do. And we came up with got on a conversation where phrases that didn't make sense in 2019 that made perfect sense now. We came up with drive-by birthday parade, and I just envisioned, I'm combining drive-by, with the birthday parade. I'm just envisioning a guy shooting cupcakes into the yard, so that's where we came up with that. So it's a birthday cake milk shake IPA. And then we also have the craft beer nerd word porn going on tap this weekend, which is that sour milkshake IPA with pineapple.
Yes.
Did you try it?
I did not, which just means I'm going to have to travel out to Mad Hatchet again.
God damn you, Jason.
Hey, man, gives me a reason to come back down. So I'll see you this weekend.
I wanted you to tell George how good it was, because he was saying it wasn't going to be good.
Well, the good news is we'll be back here on the same channel the same time next week. So certainly we can expand this conversation to next episode.
Awesome. All right. Bud.
Good deal. Sean from Mad Hatchet Brewing Company. Cheers to you, man.
Cheers,
all right. Before we sign off, we do the webcast here every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Our past episodes are on our YouTube page. Check us out at A Nice Place to Brew, and also the Facebook page. We do a podcast under the same name, A Nice Place to Brew. It's available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcast from. Our website is www.aniceplacetobrew.com. And our social media links are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nice Place to Brew and Nice Place to Brew. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. And to all the listeners out there, we raise a glass. Sean?
Oh, sorry.
There you go. It takes a lot of good beer to make great beer. Cheers.
Cheers, bud.